Spectacular Spider-Man proved that Spider-Man adaptations could have great characters that displayed some kind of affection to the comic book counterparts, and this show was an example of how every single character had some layer of depth added to them throughout the entire show. And that's not something that I can say for many Spider-Man adaptations, as many adaptations across the board generally just have a subset of characters that they focus on, and then the rest of the cast are usually one-dimensional. However, with Spectacular Spider-Man, this has never been the case. In fact, every single character that appears in the show has some kind of episode, has some kind of thing dedicated to them to give depth and backstory to the character. And that is why the world feels so whole. But the one character that I was impressed with the most was Mary Jane Watson in this show particularly. But given her role in the first 2 seasons, it never looked like MJ was going to be anything more than what she already was in the show. Very much in comparison to all the other characters, a background character, just appearing in scenes here and there in Midtown High. And occasionally she was mentioned around Peter because obviously Aunt May and Aunt Anna Watson are obviously best friends. But apart from that, she wasn't really in the show all too much. But I'd argue that this is the best adaptation of Mary Jane Watson there has ever been. And you may be saying to me, how can this be? She barely appeared in the show. Well, I'm going to explain why. And no, this has nothing to do with comic book accuracy. But why isn't comic book accuracy important? Let's first touch upon that. Yes, it is true that this is the most comic accurate version of Mary Jane Watson that we have gotten to the comic books themselves. However, I don't think that's particularly important. Comic book accuracy does play a role in converting the character, because if, for example, we have a Mary Jane Watson that is like the one from Marvel's Spider-Man, where she is nothing like her comic book counterpart, then it doesn't really count. Like, for example, you can have a comic book character and change traits about them, and they can still be the same person. However, if you go too far and completely change the character, then they might as well be a new and fresh original character. You are naming them Mary Jane Watson for the sake of naming them Mary Jane Watson. And that is the problem I have with MJ in Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel's Spider-Man 2. She's more of a Lois Lane archetype than anything else. The only thing that was remotely adapted from any Spider-Man comic book in Marvel's Spider-Man was the fact that MJ was a reporter in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. But apart from that, any sort of traits for the character were null and void. Her personality and her characterization just both did not hit the mark. And that's not to say that she's a bad character. In fact, MJ in Marvel's Spider-Man is probably one of the best written versions of the character technically that we have ever gotten. It's just that comparatively to her comic book counterpart, she is nothing like her. However, if you are to take MJ from the comic books and then adapt her into a movie, game, or a show, and you change some things about her, but obviously you keep her backstory the same, you keep what makes the character work the same in your story, then you've got a very well adapted version of Mary Jane Watson. An example of this is the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. MJ Watson in this version of Spider-Man obviously still has the same backstory and the same origin that is alluded to in Spider-Man 1. She has that abusive background with that toxic father figure. She is a popular high school girl who puts on a facade to hide her inner demons and her inner backstory, just like MJ from the comics. Now, Sam Raimi's MJ doesn't really work as well as the comic book does, and that's for various other reasons that you guys probably already understand. Some of the decisions that Raimi MJ makes are way off the mark, and some of you guys will know what I'm talking about. I've explained why comic book accuracy doesn't matter all too much, but why it's still important in understanding the core ideologies of the character and what makes the character tick in the first place. So let's move on to Spectacular Spider-Man MJ. Why is this character the best version of Mary Jane Watson that we have ever seen? And why, given the context of everything that I have laid out, is she the most underutilized version of this character that has ever graced the screen as well? And this is because Spectacular Spider-Man Mary Jane was built up in depth. She only appears in moments throughout seasons 1 and 2. However, when she does appear, that full frontal facade is exposed to the audience. As I mentioned, comic book accuracy doesn't matter all too much, but I've got to say this version of MJ Watson nails this core element and core part of the character to an absolute T, which admittedly is a big part of why she is so much of a success. She almost has no flaws. She almost has nothing wrong with her. She is basically the perfect person. She is the perfect personality. She has got the perfect looks. She's got the perfect hair. She's got the perfect everything. Everyone is obsessed with her. Flash is obsessed with her. Peter is surprised by her. She seems like this perfect person. And that is exactly what makes it great, because we know as an audience that MJ has vulnerabilities, especially from what we know about the comics. This one scene right here displays everything that you need to know and everything that makes this character great.
I thought at the dance that you and me that we...
Slow down, Tiger. It's not like we're going steady or something equally primitive. We're friends, okay?
Well, sure, but...
I'm gonna congratulate Flash.
The writers weren't willing to rush her to be together with someone. They weren't willing to rush her character and for her to be with Peter. Instead, they display her insecurities in very subtle ways, such as this. MJ is very well known to be a character that has a fear of attachment, and I feel like this show displayed this very well throughout little moments such as these. She's almost this one-girl team where no one can tie her down. No one can get her down. And it's almost like she can do no wrong. However, she displays some vulnerabilities in this facade throughout season 2, where there seems to be some sort of back and forth relationship between her and Mark Allen. Now, this was never explored in any sort of depth, but it shows that there are cracks and there are vulnerabilities in MJ's character, as she is willing to break the facade for someone that she truly likes. And this is how I imagine her story with Peter would have gone throughout seasons 3, 4, and 5. Now, she was never a big part of the show, but it seems like the creators were going to push her character further into the main narrative come later on down the line. And this is what I really missed about Spectacular Spider-Man. This is why I really wish that they made seasons 3, 4, and 5, because of this very reason. Getting to see how they would have handled the Peter and MJ relationship, how they would have handled MJ's character going forward, would have been really, really exciting to see. But the potential was there, the characterization was there, it was all perfect, and it was all building up to something really, really good. Yes, Sam Raimi's Mary Jane and Marvel's Spider-Man's Mary Jane, and maybe some other Mary Janes out there, have more complete stories, but I believe the way that they handled this character in Spectacular Spider-Man was way leagues above any of the other versions of this character in any other Spider-Man media. And the untapped potential is absolutely heartbreaking to see. With that being said, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I want to know all your thoughts. Subscribe for more Spider-Man content, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Take care, and peace.